Is A Fool and His Money?
Yeah. Uh, A Fool and His Money, which is the first narrative film starring an all black cast.
Yeah. I mean, there was the kissing one earlier, but that isn't really a narrative film.
Yeah, and there were those like kind of leering Edison movies about like,
Yeah,
a
those don't count.
black woman,
Yeah,
uh,
those don't count at all.
bathing her baby. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, this one is I think very notable for having an all black cast, and also for it being a story that is pretty independent from that fact. Like the story is not dependent on race at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a story about class.
Yeah. And it feels very much in line with Elise Guy's other sort of social satire, kind of class based movies. I do think it's interesting that the reason why this movie has an all black cast is because Elise Guy initially hired, I think, just the lead actor and a few others, and was going to pair them each with one of her usual white actors. But all of the white actors refused to be in the movie because they thought it would like denigrate their honor or some shit. And so she was like, "All right," and just hired more black actors to replace them. Elise Guy is just the best.
She's so cool. Like, you find out like all of these actors and directors that later they're palling around with fascists, and
Yeah,
Elise Guy's just super progressive casually in 1912.
yeah. So many filmmakers from this time, like the more I learn about them, the lower opinion of them I have, and Elise Guy is the opposite.
I was just semi-related. I was just seeing someone talking about how on the Chanel website they have like a timeline of the Chanel company, and it glosses right over 1940 to 1944.
Some other stuff happened, and then
Which I wasn't aware that the founder of Chanel was an operative. Well, like acted as a Nazi
right,
operative, like a
yeah,
spy or something. So yeah, but yeah, this movie, its original title was called Darktown Aristocrats, which is less
worse.
less good.
Yeah, it is very much still a film of its time. I think, like,
Yeah,
it definitely doesn't play as progressive now. I think there is still a degree of caricature going on.
especially in the ways of speaking of the
Mm-hmm.
characters.
Yeah, whenever we see, not in the intertitles, but anytime there's like something someone's written,
Yeah.
um, it's in kind of broken English, which is not a great look.
Yeah, it's like this really like exaggerated AAVE.
But other than that,
Yeah.
um, I do think the actual broad story it's telling about uh, like how people treat people differently depending on money
Yeah.
sort of gets at a pretty real truth that is still pretty relevant. And it's also it's this is one of the few films to kind of, I feel like all of the other American films have come from a very specific viewpoint, whereas this is actually kind of depicting America more as it actually existed, which is just to say had people in it that weren't super white.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, just by nature of the industry itself, there was a lot of like implicit or like byproduct exclusion of certain people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the basic story of this, it's another movie about two guys fighting over one lady. Is that Sam's the protagonist, and he fancies Lindy, and she fancies William Jackson, who is very wealthy. He sulks and finds a wallet on the ground, and then he's suddenly wealthy from all of this money that he found in the wallet. But he doesn't he doesn't want to like just give it like he seems like it seems suspicious, so he writes this note that says that he inherited money from his uncle and plans a trip to New York to make it like not seem suspicious that he suddenly got all this money. And on his trip to New York, he just buys he buys all of these, fancy clothes and, nice objects, and including from the money that he found in a wallet, buys an entire car. um, and that was apparently Elise Guy's car that he was driving. um, and yeah,
he drives by Lindy's house twice.
Which is Elise Guy's house, actually.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's cool. And so suddenly Lindy is interested in him because he's driving around in this fancy automobile.
Literally, like, so pathetic, though. Like, he gets the car and then he just drives back and forth in front of her house.
Very, very, a very high schooler move.
Yeah. And then, because a fool and his money are easily parted, is, I believe, the phrase. William Jackson, oh my god. And when she picks him again over William Jackson, you see him, you see William, like, just staring in the window, just, like, glaring at them, which is so funny.
Through the window, just looking in. Yeah.
And eventually, William Jackson comes up with a kind of gambling scheme to turn the tables once again.
Yeah.
And so Sam loses all of his money in the poker game, and then goes back to his job of being a painter.
Yeah.
And then the movie's over. It's a fun little story with, like, honestly, William Jackson looking through the window. Like, made me scream. So it was pretty funny.